you have to protect your budgets. Your budgets are not going to be here where you have to go back and look at what is good to do and what is and what's working well and what's good to do. And I think those are very critical. And figure out what is it that you need to be giving a lot of emphasis on.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Engadi CX. I'm your host, Jeremy D'Souza, and today we have someone really interesting with us. But before I introduce you to our amazing, fabulous guest, allow me to first introduce you to the magic of Engadi. Engadi is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels with 30,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engadi has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engadi blog, the video channel, and the Engadi CX podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our wonderful guest. Smita Hemige is the head of marketing in India at ThoughtWorks, a leading global software consultancy. She's also the co-founder of Your Philanthropy Story, that covers dynamic and innovative stories of philanthropy through interviews of common people and corporates. Smita is a highly motivated visionary and a performance-driven marketing executive with over 16 years of success in developing highly successful and award-winning marketing programs for the technology services industry. She's also been recognized for her thought leadership and networks that she has built within the marketing and business community. Smita, we're really, really thrilled to have you here with us today.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. And, I feel like I have to go and borrow myself somewhere for all the things that you told me. It makes me feel a little uncomfortable, but thank you for those kind words. And, I'm really excited to be part of the program today.
Wonderful. So before we get started and dive into this, we have a quick announcement for everyone. We have something special waiting for you. So stick around till the end of the interview. Smita, let's get started.
Sure, sounds good. Yeah.
Sure. So my first question to you is, how important has it become for businesses to actually prioritize digital capabilities? And where's the global market headed in this field?
I think pre-COVID, there was already a situation where a lot of the technology incumbents, when I say technology incumbents, I mean digital native players, had already come in and they had disrupted the space of the traditional players. Let's look at payments. I mean, Paytm came and disrupted the entire payments industry during the time that, we were looking at demonetization and so the banks have actually lost a large portion or practically most of the payments area to wallets like Paytm, for example. Same in the case with, Google and the Amazon of the world, or Airbnb in terms of travel, Uber in terms of the way the world decided to, transport themselves, or on the back of Uber, Porter and a bunch of the other, on-demand, luggage carrier services or porter services that you were getting. Now, technology was not going to be, already it had moved from being a back office or another function where you needed to keep your, connections and your networks up and running, but it had actually started becoming part of the core business model. So that's what we call tech at core organizations, where you bring technology to the center of everything that you do. And that in turn gives you that kind of credibility to start being a key differentiator in your marketplace and actually go and disrupt your marketplace. Absolutely. Now, with that, being like, becoming mainstream, I think a pandemic like the COVID-19 actually started accelerating. So a lot of the players who are standing in the bylines and looking at the entire play of how organizations were moving digital, or who are looking at what can we do in digital and start making these baby steps, have actually been forced. And you have to now start, getting into the arena and start playing the cards. Yeah. And, the cards being dealt, and now you start making those investments. So now digital is here to stay. And I think pandemics like this, and we don't know how many more pandemics we'll get to see, in the rest of our lifetime. We will see that, organizations will start making investments in digital. And it is going to be mainstream going forward, and it's here to stay. So, and in fact, organizations are going to start thinking beyond cloud, beyond mobile, beyond social, beyond digital marketing, beyond having an AI chatbot, but actually really rethinking about their entire digital strategy. What does it mean by keeping the customer in the center, building the technology layer around it, so that you're actually able to create better experience and better stickiness back for your customers. And I think digital is now mainstream. It's no more a novelty or an experiment that you will have in one lab or an innovation lab in your organization anymore.
Certainly. Earlier, it was something fancy that some companies would have, and now, well, businesses are thrown in with the sharks, and you have to get digital, or you're going to get eaten up.
The good thing is this entire pandemic has made it a leveling game, yes. Right? The faster you can move now, and I think you will start gaining market share. So the faster you can make those investments, figure out what is the right level. For example, if you're a organization that is into, say, manufacturing, your level of IT or digital technology landscape transformation is going to be very different from somebody who is into a marketplace, for example, because the levels that your customers expect from you are going to be very different. So don't go and jump into this mass hysteria that we need to have all of the tech stack in place, we need to be implementing everything. No, figure out what is most relevant to your organization, build your technology stack which is in line with what your customers want. Everybody does not need to have the highest amount of cloud capacity space, or making huge investments in AI, but you need to be tailoring what your customers need at that point in time. So, or steel industry, you do it based on what your customer immediate requirements are, so that you're able to transform your organization to be in line with the changing times. Don't try and get into this mass hysteria that we need to be now replacing everything that we were doing, brick and mortar, to everything becoming digital. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. You need to go for what your customers want, what your customers need, and not just look at, oh, this is something new and shiny and I want this. Okay. So my next question to you is that the coronavirus pandemic, it's obviously impacting marketing strategies across the world. What are some important parameters that businesses should focus on and consider to market themselves in a better manner?
Great question. And, I've gone through this, quite a few number of times. I think one is you have to protect your budgets. Your budgets are not going to be here where, you have to go back and look at what is good to do and what is, and what's working well and what's good to do. And I think those are very critical. And figure out what is it that you need to be giving a lot of emphasis on. Two is, based on that, go back and protect your budgets. There's not going to be a better time than to be doing this. Three, please take risks. This is a time that you can go back and experiment, because it's okay to go back, try new things, figure out, what needs to get done, see, what is it that you need to do to actually, try and talk to your target audience. I'll give you an example. If we are running a current program called Humans of Remote Work in ThoughtWorks. Traditionally, what we would have done is we would have used pictures, or we would have used a text with, a textured imagery. That is the typical brand guideline that we have within ThoughtWorks. Yeah. Now, these are unprecedented times. You can't be going and taking pictures, right? And you want pictures to be of a certain quality, because it's going on the social channels of the organization, of corporate. So what we did was we took an illustration approach. So it's very similar to Humans of New York or Humans of Mumbai. It's talking about a person's story, and it's talking about how they were effectively able to work in a remote scenario. What did it mean for them? What was the support that the organization was able to give? A very human touch to the whole remote work story. One, it cuts through the clutter of all the noise that you get to hear about the market. Two, the illustration immediately stands out. When you see a news feed, or you see your feed of, on any of your social channels, be it on LinkedIn or Instagram or on Facebook or on Twitter, suddenly when you see a really well done illustration, you start, you will want to go back and read more, because it kind of picks on somebody's curiosity. That's what we were able to do. And that kind of experimentation you wouldn't do in normal scenarios, right? So in my mind, go out, experiment. It's a time where people are okay for you to be stepping out of the norm, but ensure that you're in line with your brand guidelines, tone, and the language, or what is it that you're looking to talk through from a brand perspective, tone, voice, and imagery and color and all of that. The fourth is ensure that you're able to quickly look and work through the strengths of your team, and you're able to ensure that your team is then performing in areas that are where they can add maximum value. The market today is changing dynamically, so you also want your team to have multiple skills to be developed, but look at what is the core area and look at what is the other auxiliary area that you can build the team skills on and start building it. 5, do a lot of A/B testing, because you don't know what, it's no more the time where you thought if you used a certain language, it worked well with your target audience, right? Like if I'm going to be going back and working with CXOs, I don't know what works today because I think the whole market is disrupted and the way they're functioning is also very different. So then how can I do A/B testing to see what works before I start investing in either paid or inorganic media? And last, measure everything. There is no two ways about it. You have to ensure that you're going back and measuring every piece of content that you have. Ensure that you're using your your MarTech stack really well. You're automating pieces that should be automated. You're tracking and seeing every outcome from every activity. You're looking and tracking that back into your various channels that you're used to actually take the message forward. What is the conversation that's striking from your your client leadership team when they take the same message to their clients? And then go back and analyze it from a channel, the brand, as well as a messaging perspective, and look at what is it that's working. If you think it's not working, be extremely agile. Take it back in, iterate on it very quickly, and take it back out. So in my mind, you need to start moving away from your earlier activity/campaign to a very agile approach when you're looking at marketing. No more, long, I'll wait till everything is done. No, take it out, test it, work with some of your client leadership team, see what's the hook when you're going to your customers, see if they really bait on it. Take it back in. If there is no response, take it back in quickly, iterate on it, dish out something again. I think that gets very critical. So those are, I think, things that are going to change in post-COVID world for us. And account-based marketing is going to be key because, it's no more a world where you say, I'm okay not to do account-based marketing because I want to go after new logos. I think the shift has changed. It takes 3 times more expensive to go and find a new customer, to build that trust with you, to actually sign that contract with you. So what can you do actually scientifically with account-based marketing? Ensure that all of your activities are actually converting to either upsell or cross-sell or increase your area of influence within the accounts. What can you do right from ground up and bottom down so that you're able to have a large degree of influence within the account that you're working on? Mm-hmm. And the other piece is, what are you doing to actually be driving the top of the funnel? So I call that circular demand creation, right? So what are you doing with your existing accounts? What are you doing for top of the funnel so that you're working very closely with your demand teams? And there's also a rise in the relationships that you have within the organization, right? Earlier, it used to be either with recruitment when you're looking to hire people, or with your demand teams when you're looking to help build demand. Now, I think there are 2 new people who have entered the equation. One is procurement. The second is finance, with the entire COVID situation. So it's, I would say, 4 in a box, and the marketing person being the 5th person. And that's how I think you have to do the whole equation. It's about great partnerships. It's about smoother handoffs. It's about building that trust. It's about ensuring that you're also hearing best practices back from procurement, so that they're also able to come back and tell you this is what they did in their previous stint. These are the agencies that they worked with. So since you're anyway in the experimenting mode and risk-taking mode, it makes sense for you to be doing some of those. So, those are going to be critical. And last but not the least, do not try and go and sell everything back to your customer. Please try and be a partner, because I think it turns them off. They've got larger issues and problems that they're dealing with right now. So in my mind, go back, please look at what is it that you can do as partner with them, share information back with them, talk to them about best practices that you have followed, walk along those remote corridors or online corridors with them, and be their true partner and be their sounding board when they're looking to talk to you. Please do not, when you hear something, do not go back and give them a proposal tomorrow and tell them, can we work on you, and this is the check for that, so or this is the bill for that. So try and look at those, are going to be critical in my mind.
Certainly. You can't just go and pitch everything you have to one customer who may not need it.
Yeah.
You need to personalize it and, make sure that what you're pitching is beneficial for them. That's when they're actually going to come in. Right, Smita?
Yeah, absolutely. In my mind, I think those are really critical.
True. Very true. My next question to you is, what role would AI and automation play in over here, and how can businesses start adopting these technologies?
In my mind, I think AI, data is going to be the center of everything, be it platforms, be it legacy modernization. If I go back and if I speak to organizations today, the CXOs on the other side that we are working with, predominantly everyone wants data and insights. But the issue is that as human beings, I think we like to hoard all information, and we like to hoard what is good to have information and all information. So what happens then is you have a lot of information, but you don't know if you need all of it. So more often than not, you end up having a lot of data, and making meaningful insights out of it becomes hard. But the key is to figure out what are operational key result areas for the organization, ensure that you have enough data. And also, data as a culture has only been in practice for the last few years. Otherwise, we've had data, but we've not known how to make sense out of it. So if I go back and if I actually have data to be the key, and using machine learning and the advanced technologies around artificial intelligence, you start building a larger, strong data strategy. But what typically happens is organizations like to go back because the board mandates them to have a strong AI strategy. They end up building a bot. They end up building some kind of structures that will give them like something to go back and show back to their board. But I think that is a wrong approach, because I think end of the day, you do need to ensure that you will have a strong view or perspective around AI as a practice. To have a strong data strategy that is unique to your organization based on what you need to get your operations a lot more optimal, get a lot more efficient, ensure that you're adding intelligence, you're able to proactively look and spot trends even before they occur, also understand what your customers views and feedback are, and how can that fuel back into your business. I think all of that gets very critical, and that needs a strong, tailored, personalized AI strategy. All organizations are now having a new persona or a target person in that room, and that person is called the chief data officer. If I look at organizations itself, and that chief data officer's job is to kind of bridge the different business units as well as work with the CEO and the CDO and the rest of the technology organization to be building out a data strategy that's in line with what they need as a business. And once they do that, I think investments that you have in the area of AI and further around data, I think is going to be extremely critical. A lot of engines are already available. I think some of the large organizations have already built a lot of the large prediction or AI engines that are available. A lot of the other large financial services organizations are looking at how can they have AI or an intelligent platform or intelligent systems so that they're able to provide the right kind of insights back to the business owners. It's all underway, but I think AI is easier said than done, actually, because a lot of our systems aren't really geared to speak to each other. So the first thing is to figure out how do you get to a spot where you can get the systems to talk to each other, ensure that they are in line with what you're looking for as your data strategy, and then you build out your AI strategy along that. And I think data is going to be the new fuel. Beyond oil and gas and everything else that we're talking about, it's going to be what organizations are going to be extremely protective about going forward, because that clearly will shape the way that businesses are going to be moving forward.
Absolutely, certainly. So to sum it up, what businesses should be doing is they should craft their AI strategy to make their data work for them, rather than to just simply please the board and say, okay, I've dabbled in AI, I've started this, but
Yeah.
it's not going to make a difference unless you
Yeah.
actually work.
So unless you've got a very clear AI strategy that's in line with what your organization requires, and each of that is going to be very specific to the organization. Like it can't be that I'll take a blueprint from an organization, like say a bank A, and take it to a retailer B and give it to them. Now
Absolutely.
the retailer needs different set of data requirements when compared to the bank, right? So it's going to be really hard, for uh, an organization to just take a lift shift and take that. Which is why even if you go back and see, you don't see too many end to end data products available. You will find business intelligence tools which are able to give you some form of insights, and typically they are rudimentary insights. But if you're looking at larger data, strategies and blueprints, they're very tailored to every organization, and which is where organizations like ThoughtWorks come into play, because they have the experience of working with on mission critical systems. You have the ability to look at how organizations need to be their front end talking to their back end. We've Even though we've been in existence over the last 25 years, we are practically a digital native, because we were building platforms even before the word platforms got coined, for really large B2C organizations. So in my mind, I think it's about what do you do to take insights from there and actually build a very specific data strategy, and ensure that then you're pulling or carving the right data insights, and then creating and putting together a larger artificial intelligence roadmap or blueprint on top of that, and then building your AI systems in line with it. But data is going to be the foremost game changer for everybody in the enterprise. So if you don't have the right kind of insights, I don't think customer stickiness is going to be, or customer satisfaction is going to have a larger dent in the long run.
Certainly. Um, so if you don't use your data right, you're in a hot mess essentially. Sweta, my next question to you is, what new trends should we expect to see in the journey to digital transformation? And what are your views on conversational AI?
Sure. So I think the the trends are changing every day, but fundamentally it's the same. 5 or 6 tenets that we have within digital. It's about how can you move your legacy to new. It's about how can you build greater platforms. 3 is around how do you create the right kind of data strategy so that data is kind of powering everything that you're doing from the center. Fourth is about, I think, cultural change within the organization. Now, digital can't be just about changing some nuts and bolts in your IT, right? It's also about how people will be working with the system. So it's not just about what can I do on the IT side, but it's also about the cultural aspect. And I think that's very critical. If you want to be successful in actually transforming your organization digitally, I think it's a more cultural and business transformation that you're talking about, because it means your business model is going to be altered. It also means that your cultural fabric within your organization is going to be altered. How do you do that? And last is about how do you then upskill your current talent pool that you have within your organization. Your current talent pool may not be equipped to be managing your new digital environment. So what do you then do to get them to be upskilled and in line with what is changing in the industry? What are the different interventions that you will do for capability development? What are the different programs that you will do, apart from, of course, the usual boot camps, the master classes, the SME contact connects and everything else? What else can you do, and how do you get them up to speed quickly? Because you can't expect to be moving to a new environment, but your current capability is not equipped to kind of manage that. Then you're again set back, and then that's where the clash happens between the old and the new, and it then true business transformation never happens. And business transformation does not happen in a year. It happens over multiple years. But the board and the CEO needs to have that kind of patience. Now if I go back and if I talk through like the Burberry case study, right? I mean, it's a very popular case study when we look at digital transformation. And this is something that I've heard through, a good influencer that I've heard on digital transformation. His name is Jaspreet Bindra. And, what he told me during one of our conversation was, there was a new CEO and the person also had a new chief delivery officer. Now they realized that Burberry, one of the key regions in China, was and China being one of the chief consumer of all luxury products, right? Burberry was then viewed as the old brand, means people over 45, 50 years, you have a dog, you have a horse, and typically British brand, a little laid back, a little formal. But they realized that they were losing a huge market with the Chinese, young individuals who had the money, who are their target audience, and who wanted to buy the luxury
The
brands.
new money.
So yeah, so which meant that one, they had to go back and relook at their entire digital engagement platform, because you couldn't have like the old legacy looking thing. And of course, the designs changed as well in line with it. And I'm not going through the whole case study, but the team kept at it for about 9 years. And today, if I go back and if I look at China, one of the most well, or the brand that has the maximum market share in the young generation is Burberry. And that didn't happen overnight. It happened over 8 years. It meant that the board had to have patience. It meant that the CEO, the CDO had to have patience in ensuring that you were able to go and see through that entire transformation journey. And it's not just about stopping when you get your first or two successes, but it's about continuing on that journey to ensure that you're ahead of your competition and you're able to get that kind of market share.
Right.
So if brands like that, which is luxury, which is very niche, can actually go and they can have a significant impact on your on your entire digital transformation, or on your marketplace using digital, I think it gets really critical for other organizations to also take a step back and look at what can you actually do to see how all of this can pan out. That is one. The second is, I think conversational AI is not new. It's been with us for quite some time. I think thanks to smartphones, all of us have an AI assistant that's there, which kind of comes back and tries helping you. We've all had our Alexas and our other Siri and all of us in our houses, where they are coming and they're trying to be voice assisted or voice commands. But I think what's interesting is mainstream organizations actually adopting conversational AI. Like for example, during the lockdown, and because we all went to sudden lockdown, a lot of the banks, for example, had an overload of the number of calls that were coming to their customer care center. And I think a lot of the banks have actually made significant investments in their conversational AI as well as their chatbots that they have on their platform, because they were then the frontline answering customer queries. And if they could answer, then the load that was there on the customer service team actually reduced. So a lot of the banks, like for example, Kotak Bank, has made significant improvements, and their chatbot was really instrumental for them to seamlessly move the bank from being a branch specific to becoming totally digital, right? And I think that's all of these get very critical when you're looking at how enterprises, forget about B2C because it's ingrained, but how is it that enterprises are going back and looking at it? It's been common with be it with the likes of Marriott or any of the the hospitality chains actually using a lot of the bots in the past. But it's also, and a lot of the B2C heavy, like it could be a Spotify, it could be any of your shopping sites which typically give you a bot, or it could be the likes of your convenience service providers like your Swiggy and your Dunzo and all of them using bots. I think the future moving to ensuring that you're able to have a conversation and able to understand what is it that you're trying to say, and having a robust database to kind of have a query, which has queries that it can answer to, I think gets very critical. And I think that's going to be even more interesting to see how this is going to scale from novelty to actually becoming mainstream. And organizations actually, building a lot of their customer experience strategies on the back of, I think, AI and conversational bots. I think that's going to be interesting to see going forward.
Sure. So, a lot of them should be looking at conversational AI as a first point of contact to ease the burden on their actual customer support teams.
Yeah.
And when an organization goes through a digital transformation journey, they need to understand that it's going to be a long journey. It has to be a continuous process. It's not a one and done thing where they like build one product or something like that, and they're like, okay, now we can relax.
Yeah. And nobody wants to, no CIO who's a traditional enterprise wants to hear about the journey of an Uber, wants to hear the journey of an Amazon, wants to hear the journey of an Airbnb. They're very different organizations. They were built digital native. They were not traditional and then taken digital native. So examples like Burberry really makes people sit up and listen. Examples where Gucci is going to go back and relook at the way they will do their one season only, but they will show their catalog of offerings, or the way a traditional merchandiser like a kirana store, how will they adopt and get on to some kind of innovation platform so that they're able to reach out to their audience. So I think comparison to any of the digital natives, I don't think is right. The second is also digital natives have built, like every other organization, on jugaad. So you've put your entire platform on putting many pieces together. But is the platform scalable? Is the platform evolutionary? Will it scale to your further demands that you will put on the system? And that's where the breakpoints occur, and that's where they start either dropping on customer experience or dropping on ability to launch new offerings to market. But the trick is then to see if you're going to go back and rethink your platform, what do you then do and how do you get that right? And even within a digital native organization, there are this friction because you've gotten an older set of people and you've gotten them to work on digital technology, but you haven't really upskilled them on that entire journey. Culturally, you're slightly different. So how do you then work through all of this to ensure that you're in line with how you want to go to market? I think that gets very critical as well.
Okay, Smita, this has been brilliant. This has been amazing. Where can people reach out to you? Where can they find you?
So I'm quite active on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And if you look at Smita Hemmigae, which is SMITHA HEMMIGAE, you will find me on either of those channels. Feel free to connect with me. I'm more than happy to any insight that I can offer or any best practices that I followed. And I would also like to learn from anyone who reaches out to me, because I think it's a two-way learning process that we can learn from somebody else. So more than happy, please reach out to me.
This is amazing. I'm sure all of them are going to be rushing in and reaching out to you. Your insights have been truly valuable. Everyone, we did tell you that we have something special for you. So if you've stuck around for so long, we really like to offer you a chance to download our ebook, The Evolution of Customer Experience, for free. It's available for you to download at the link in the description. Check it out, and I'm sure you're going to love it. Engadi CX will be back really soon with a new expert and a new episode. So stay tuned, guys. We'll see you around for the next one.